building a new model for CRM. We combine the power and flexibility of an advanced CRM data model with the beautiful design and multi-layer collaboration capabilities of no software. Again, collaboration capabilities are going to be very similar to the newer every single category that we have seen. They are built on collaboration.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you are joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. And today we have one of the newest, hottest solution. It's called Attio. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my quick intros. I'm Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent digital transformation consulting and advisory firm. On that note, Andy, do you want to go next?
I would love to, Sam. And as always, I am so honored for you to invite me. Thank you so much. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for mostly small to mid-sized manufacturers all my life. I've worked all over North America, and I also teach people how to uncover the truth about ERP software before they buy. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andy, for being here. Always fun to do the show with you. Shrestha, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. My name is Shrestha Das, and I'm part of the marketing team at Elevate IQ. And I'm super excited to be here today.
Okay, amazing, guys. And if you're in the audience joining for the first time, we always like to create that three-way conversation. So if you guys have any sort of experiences with this technology, again, it's brand new. There are a lot of different tools in the market that are following similar trend. So it's going to be very interesting. Right now, it's very hard to comment about the potential of the technology, but it's going to get very interesting. So a couple of terms, and Andy, Shrestha, I know you guys have done many different CRM solutions we have captured or covered so far, on this show. So this is very interesting because one of the problems, and I don't know whether you guys recall or not, that we had noticed with the large majority of the CRMs. One of the common theme that you are going to get with most of them, especially when it comes to users, what they are going to report is that the CRM data model, even though it is more fluid than ERP, but what is that called, Andy? The off-the-shelf solution that you are going to buy is going to be fairly rigid in general. And even with CRM, which literally has maybe 5, 6 business objects, it might have 10. In some cases, maybe for Salesforce, it's a little bit more.
A little more, yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, that's the extent of CRM for the most part. And even with CRM, a lot of companies feel that it's very boxed, it's very rigid in general to be able to accommodate their workflows. And honestly speaking, we have seen this ourselves in our implementations. Even with CRM, I mean, we see a lot of failures with CRM as well, and a lot more than ERP. Can you believe this? In general, the ERPs are slightly more customizable. They don't have as many constraints as your CRM category is going to have. And overall, the workflows that you have in the CRM category, they tend to be ad hoc depending upon the industries. So that is one of the challenges that we always run into, and that's exactly what Attio is trying to solve. So there are 2 or 3 different themes that are appearing in the market at this point in time. One is one of the core problem of the CRM market was always that, okay, if salespeople don't enter data and they don't like to enter data, and he knows about it, it's very hard to get them to enter data. And this has been the challenge all the time. And because of that, you don't get the insights, you don't get the analytics that you're looking for, and make decisions from that. So this was the core challenge. So now one of the themes that I was talking about is auto enrichment, as well as the auto data entry, that you don't have to enter any sort of data from the CRM perspective. It should do the data entry as much as possible without touching anything. So that is one theme which is called auto enrichment. And there are many software in the market at this point of time. They are sort of trying to exploit this trend. The second trend is flexible data model. And flexible data model, and Andy Shrestha, I don't know whether you guys remember this or not, but we have seen flexible data model, and I don't think we have reviewed Notion so far, but ClickUp is one product that is slightly more flexible, overall from the data model perspective. Obviously, the whole idea of Monday.com, Airtable, as well as Smartsheet, the reason why they are so hot is because they call this as more of the schemaless database, schemaless model. And obviously, there is collaboration piece as well. So those two themes in general sort of go together. But that is the reason why they are so hot, because they provide the same fluidity that you are going to get with these spreadsheets. But then these spreadsheets are going to be a lot more connected. You can get whatever data you want, but overall, transactionally, they are not going to be as connected. So you don't have as much rigidity that you are going to get with your CRM and ERP-like tools. So now this particular tool is taking this to the next level. So obviously you had a lot of problems from the Airtable perspective, Smartsheet perspective, but still what users and customers, what they had to face is it did not have the real connectivity, from the CRM perspective. The CRM processes was not necessarily built up as part of the tool. So now this is going to be not only your fluidity of the data model, plus you are going to get all of the CRM processes built in the tool, plus you have the auto enrichment as well. So those 2 or 3 themes is what driving this category. And there are many solutions out there, and I don't know how much they are going to disrupt the CRM market, but there is a real potential here. And the reason why these categories are so prominent at this point of time, again, it's because of the graph and object databases. And these are new database categories that did not exist. I don't know the exact date of
What did you call that, Sam?
the graph or object databases.
Graph and object databases. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the new sort of database. So Andy, I'll give you a little background there. I guess it might be helpful. So overall, traditionally speaking, if you look at any sort of transactional systems or ERP-like systems, they all used SQL-centric databases because the data was sort of the structured data, right? And then you had NoSQL databases. NoSQL databases were designed for analytics sort of workloads, not necessarily transactional, because they were not as good for the transactional use cases. They were also good for social media-like use cases, because if you are going to lose one message or one transaction, it's not a big deal on social media, but that does not work, let's say, your financial use cases or any of the CRM transactional use cases as well. That's why even the CRM systems, the large majority of them, the ones that were designed for these downstream scenarios, they all used some sort of SQL technology. Okay, so there was a divide between SQL versus NoSQL. Some systems they designed using the NoSQL databases, but then they just did not have the schema. They did not have the transactional integrity, and that's where your graph and object database is going to be slightly better, because it can allow the fluidity, but seems like, at least at this point of time, that they can support some sort of a schema, so you have some structure. But that is where I don't think we are going to have enough data at this point of time. We don't have enough data with us to be able to conclude whether they are going to give you the same transactional integrity that companies generally get using the SQL databases. And that could be one driver why the mainstream CRM systems have not switched to this technology. But the other reason also could be that since they need to be backward compatible, it's harder for them compared to the newer vendors. These guys are starting on the net new install base, so it's just easier for them. It might not be as easy for Salesforce because they need to look for the backward compatibility as well of
Right, they
their
have so many customers already.
exactly. But I mean, it's promising, but we are not going to have enough data to be able to conclude whether they are going to provide the same transactional integrity that companies generally get using the SQL databases. That's just comment. Again, we'll be touching a lot more as we uh, progress through the show. One second. So, okay. So we have just one comment here. Okay, perfect. So some of the competing technologies that we have, and I don't think we have reviewed Folk, and Folk is another CRM which is slightly more on a simple category. And again, these guys are trying to sort of mimic the success of CRM such as that's not CRM. Notion, that's more of the project management tool, but sometimes that is used as a CRM as well. ClickUp is primarily a project management tool, but they claim that they are CRM as well. So again, these guys are trying to sort of mimic the success of these tools. Obviously, they are very well adopted. They have decent market share right now. So now these guys are trying to do the same thing for the CRM category as well. Overall, from the fluid data model perspective, there's no question that the Smartsheet, Airtable, Monday.com, they are very successful. We have seen their use cases in a lot more transactional use cases than just project management in CRM. We have seen them used for example, product information management, PIM category as well, which is very interesting, right? That they are somehow able to do that. But again, those use cases, those workloads are not necessarily as transactional as your CRM centric use cases. PIM data is still very marketing centric data. So even if it is not going to be as transactional, it's probably going to be okay. And that's why doing the PIM or DAM might be okay inside Airtable. That's why we are seeing a little success there, I guess, in those use cases. But when you get into the real transactional use cases, that's where I guess the challenges are going to be. And those challenges exist even with very mature CRM systems such as your HubSpot. Salesforce is probably the only CRM system that has done very heavy transactional use cases from the CX perspective. So here, overall, I guess the comparison for this is going to be HubSpot, Pipedrive, Salesforce and Zoho. Those are probably the closest, comparison. In fact, I mean, once you go through the presentation, you'll see that these guys have compared them only with Salesforce and HubSpot because those are going to be two CRM systems that are generally used by any of the hot startups, as well as the SaaS ecosystem. And that's where these guys are sort of trying to position. But those are one of the leading CRM solutions out there in the market. So overall, I guess their target market, if you look at the number of logos they have, and again, they are brand new. I think they started last year, fairly new, but they are decently advanced right now, just in 1 year, which is commendable. Just within 1 year, they have functionality. They can probably match. I would not say match with HubSpot and Salesforce, at least from the ecosystem integration perspective, but they are impressive. What they have done is definitely impressive. Just to give you some background, if you're joining for the first time, any of the reviews that you have not seen before, the content sources that we generally utilize for these reviews, it's all public information, whatever is available. Generally, we go by that. If it is going to be a public company, our preference is going to be to go through the financial statements because that's where the perspective is investors. And we find a lot more truth and specificity in financial statements than just the marketing messaging. But then we are sort of trying to connect the dots with the marketing messaging as well. So, for private companies such as this, we go back to historical news stories in terms of what they have changed, how they evolved. So we are looking at the overarching picture of where they are coming from. So we analyze that. Then we look at the product design, how the product is designed, and then the customer stories. We are going to look at that as well, what they have done, what customers are feeling, and finally, any information that we can find on either Reddit threads or user reviews. So these are 5 or 6 different sources that we have utilized for this review as well. this is the comparison chart that we have introduced recently for the closest competitors, which are probably going to be included as part of the evaluation. Just to give you a bird eye view, let's say if you're evaluating Attio, most likely the next best comparison for this is probably going to be Folk, and that's what you're going to find on Reddit and any other public sources as well. And then third, I would say closest is probably going to be Pipedrive, because that is slightly more for the transactional use cases. HubSpot is going to be there, but HubSpot is not necessarily for the ad hoc use cases, just because the data model is very constrained. With HubSpot, they are very strong from the upstream marketing automation centric use cases. But if you go for the real operational use cases, if you have plain vanilla sales process, they could be a great CRM. But for the ad hoc use cases, the custom use cases where Attio is trying to position themselves, it might not be the best fit. Salesforce obviously is going to be very strong, but the only challenge with Salesforce you have is they, even though they are a very new platform, it feels like yesterday when they started, but they are on very legacy technology at this point of time. It's not as modern as what you're going to find with Pipedrive, HubSpot, especially with things such as your, custom coded action. So sometimes the amount of development effort that you need to put in with Salesforce is going to be astronomical, and that's where the real challenge is. That you need to go to developers for a lot of things. Sure, you can do a lot, on the UI as well, but it's just not as friendly. And that's what people don't like about Salesforce anymore. They used to love Salesforce, but not anymore. So overall, from the Attio perspective, their biggest strength, they claim that their data model is completely fluid, meaning you can literally design whatever you want, but that's not how data models work. Sure, you are going to have some fluidity, from the data model perspective, and that we are going to verify on their screens, etc. Whatever they are claiming, again, we don't have enough evidence right now whether it is going to be as fluid as they are trying to claim. We just don't have enough data. It just seems unrealistic. But again, we'll talk more about that. But at least from the marketing claims perspective, they are claiming that you can build whatever you want. You can literally get rid of all of the CRM hierarchies that you have, and you can create whichever custom objects you want in whatever structure you want. But again, it's not, when we are looking at their screens, their data model, it doesn't feel like they have that. But they have done some use cases where that are going to be far stronger than what HubSpot or Salesforce might be able to accomplish. So it's impressive. But again, we just don't have enough data at this point of time to be able to conclude whether they are going to be absolutely flexible, infinitely scalable data model. I think we need some more data there. But that's their claim, that they are trying to resolve that, and that's what is their strength. The other strength is ability to build any sort of complex relationships. So these are going to be, so if you have data modeling background, the way data modeling is done, where you are going to have the parent-child relationship, the associations, many-to-one, one-to-many, all of that, they are claiming that they can accommodate using custom objects. But again, once we look at the details, then we will know a little bit more. So hang in there with me. Then the other strength that they have is they are trying to align this with some of the CDPs that we have in the market, and that is the alignment that we have seen even with Pipedrive. I think HubSpot is not necessarily into B2C play. Generally, in our mind, CDP was more of the B2C play, but here a lot of SaaS platforms, they are trying to use a CDP as well, just because they are trying to build a lot more sophisticated marketing automation platform, or the use cases, and that's why they are trying to use CDP. But for the most part, CDP is generally used in slightly more B2C use cases. If you look at their logos right now, 90% of them are probably B2B. So it's very interesting that now CDP is being used in the B2B use cases as well, and they have a term called PLG. So Andy, even for you, this is going to be a little sales training here. I don't know whether you are familiar with PLG or not. So
PLG, no, yeah. Never heard of it.
So in the SaaS community, they are using a term called product-led growth. And this is one of the GTM motion is the term that they use, PLG motion, GTM motion. So this is going to be, they are sort of trying to productize the SaaS offerings, and they are trying to use that. And there's a new concept called reverse ETL, and I don't know if you're familiar with that. So that's a very interesting concept as well. There are many different technologies and tools that are performing the use cases of reverse ETL. Are you familiar with that, Andy?
No.
No? Okay, so basically the whole idea of reverse ETL, what they are trying to do is, obviously 90% of the CRM tools that we have in the market, they are trying to gather as much data as possible from the external sources, from the internal sources, and they are trying to create this sort of data warehouse. So you have a lot of data warehouse technologies in the market. For example, let's say you look at Snowflake is one of them, right? And that's why Snowflake was very hot. We reviewed, them as well. But then once you sort of consolidate the data at one place, then you need to bring it in your CRM for your sales and marketing team. For that, they have another tool called reverse ETL. So it's kind of interesting because if you look at Snowflake, they generally mention that, you know what, with us, you don't even need ETL. Okay, we can get your data wherever the data is sitting, and you can bring all of that data in our instance. But for the most part, that is going to be a disconnected instance, and that's why the reverse ETL matters. So we have, like, in the reverse ETL category, there are many platforms out there, and they are doing really well. They have substantial ARR overall, with that as well. So that's a very interesting technology that they are trying to align themselves with. So that's going to be another trend, that they are sort of working with. Now, one of the unique, ability that you will not be able to do even with tools such as your HubSpot. So, for example, let's say if you try to delete your deal object, you cannot even rename deal object inside HubSpot. It's that limiting. Okay, at least as of today, maybe they are going to change tomorrow, but their data model is very constraining, meaning you cannot do that. Okay, Salesforce, we are not sure whether you can rename the standard object or delete the standard object, and that's where the real power is. So here, let's say for some industries, you go to not-for-profit, you don't necessarily have deals. Okay, you don't have everything boilerplate that you are going to see with deals, and sometimes the life cycle as well as the structure could be so different that you just cannot utilize the sales boilerplate that is going to be applicable for other industries. And that's why what you need to do is you need to probably create an object from scratch. For those use cases, you need to build that. So that's where deleting the deal object becomes critical, and that's what these guys are able to do. But in their case as well, they are not able to delete either the contact object or company object. Sometimes you are going to have scenarios for that as well. So then they are going to argue, okay, why do we need to use CRM, I guess. So this is not necessarily the custom development platform. It's meant to be a CRM, because there are going to be a lot of different processes that are going to be built around your company and contact object. So you cannot necessarily change those. You have to utilize those if you want to take advantage of the core CRM functionality, which is going to be any sort of email. Generally, email is going to be done by your contact object, and that's why you cannot change those. You cannot get rid of those.
So basically, are you saying that this Attio is you're able to modify the processes more so? Is that
not
fair?
Not just processes, but the whole object you can get rid of, and you can create newer objects. So Andy, maybe I'll give you some background about what business objects are, so that it is helpful, right? So in CRM, and I'm pretty sure you are probably managing your own pipeline in a CRM right now. So generally you are going to have a company, and company is a business object in which you are capturing all of the details of the company. So that will be one object. Now you have contact. Contact is going to be another business object. You have an opportunity or a deal, that's going to be another business object. You are going to have different relationship, how that interacts with your contact and company. So that's going to be another business object. So likewise, you are going to have many different business objects, in a CRM. So generally, let's say if you look at HubSpot, you cannot necessarily delete. You cannot delete company. You cannot delete contact. You cannot delete deal. You cannot rename them. You can create newer objects. For example, let's say, Andy, you are working on your MDF processes. Right now, maybe your MDF process is managed manually as part of your RevOps, SalesOps process. But let's say you want to model that process as part of the CRM. How would you model that? You need to create some sort of object structure to be able to model that process. So it's not going to be just the process. It's also going to be the underlying objects, because objects are the ones that are going to be the foundational pillar that you are going to need to be able to model those processes. Processes are sort of these steps, but they are generally taken on an object. Am I making sense here?
I'll say yes, but I'm sure I didn't understand most of what you just said, but that's okay.
Okay, so I don't know if you're going to have any sort of clarifying question. Obviously, we can discuss offline if you like.
We can discuss it offline.
Yeah. But here, I guess, I mean, we are sort of, altering the state of the business objects. And that's what is the key theme here from the CRM perspective. And when you get into the real deep CRM implementation, ability to change or delete those business objects become critical. Okay, so now the other point that we have from the Attio perspective is, so Andy, one more point I would like to mention is, if you look at the traditional CRM, I don't know which one you are using. I think you are using Zoho, right? So yes. With Zoho, so let's say, for example, obviously every single CRM vendor out there is going to say, hey, I've got this, Outlook app that you can install inside Outlook. You can create the opportunity. You can create, even Infor is probably going to argue that. Every single ERP vendor is going to argue that I have the Outlook app. But the challenge with that Outlook app or the social media app for the most part, okay? So if you go to LinkedIn and let's say you need a one-click process, you interact with somebody and then you need to simply press the button that, okay, if you have an opportunity, you are simply pressing a button there that, okay, now create a company record for me based on this interaction, create a contact record, create an opportunity as well based on this interaction so that I don't have to go to my CRM, capture all of the company details, create contact, create an opportunity, because that's going to take some time. Sometimes you are going to forget. So here, what these guys are able to do is that you don't have to have a pre-existing record inside CRM. So generally, traditional tools, if you look at even ERP or CRM, when they had this widget inside your Outlook, the challenge was that you have to have that company or contact record inside your CRM. If you don't have that, then you cannot necessarily capture them. You can capture the interactions, but you have to create those first. So that was the fundamental assumption. So now you don't even have to have that. So here, and that's the fluidity of the data model, that you don't need to have company or contact object. And that's where these guys are really strong, that, okay, it doesn't matter whether you have something or not, we will be able to sync all of the company and contact. In fact, the whole onboarding process is going to change. So for example, let's say if you are installing your CRM for the first time, so generally the process is going to be, hey, this is my CRM. Now let's create my company, all of the dependent objects, and let's create my contact. And finally, you are going to be able to capture any sort of transactions on that, right? Here, what these guys are able to do, hey, just give me your Gmail login. I'll figure out, okay, how many different contacts you have, how many companies you have, and let me create your data model. So it's that quick. So now they are able to create all of that. And the reason why they are able to do that is because of the fluidity of the data model.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's where the real play is, the enrichment. So not only they can create these records, they can also enrich. For example, let's say they have 10 different data sources. They can enrich based on the funding situation that might be there. They might be able to collect some sort of signals based on those leads. They may be able to go to Zoom Info, gather some of the data. So those are the crazy scenarios that they are able to do to be able to provide the intel. So once you have the interaction, you don't have to do anything. The only thing you have to do is you need to look up in the CRM, and now you have a lot of intel that you need to be able to close your deal, I guess, Andy. And you are going to be so happy about it. I know this. Don't make me do any work and give me all the intel.
Yeah, it sounds like paradise for salespeople.
Exactly. And that's the real power. That's why this is so powerful as well as attractive in my mind. Now, some of the cons. Okay, so obviously right now the integration and ecosystem that is limited. They are barely starting. Obviously, it is one of the hottest company, so it's going to grow. Just like Salesforce, HubSpot. But again, they are very new, brand new, very small right now. And they are not going to have as many integrations that you are going to find with the larger ecosystems, and that's the real drawback that you have. The data model might not be as flexible as claimed, so I think we'll discuss that. Again, don't quote us on that.
Because it hasn't been out long enough? Is that why you're saying that? We're waiting for this proof is in the pudding?
We just don't know at this point of time. Yeah. So either the flexibility is not going to be there, or there are going to be data integrity challenges, so one of that. So again, it's very new, so we don't have the real intel from the users who have kind of implemented that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I guess we just cannot comment on that. But once we learn, once we use the system, then we would know a little bit more how that is happening and how true the claims are. But if their claims are true, whatever they are quoting, that means it's really powerful.
It's pretty impressive. But it's like any new software, right? I mean, you have to wait to really uncover what the truth is about any new system is speaking to their customers and knowing how their real experiences have been, not just the marketing fluff.
Exactly. And marketing copy version, it's very hard to trust. Even for consultants, it's very, 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 very hard to confirm, what is going to work and what are going to be implications. And that's the state that we have right now. That okay, whatever they are claiming sounds very powerful and amazing, but again, we don't know enough to be able to comment on that. So I'll keep going here, Andy. So one of the things that you are going to notice, the relationships that are sort of highlighted in their screenshots are only going to be association relationships, and those relationships are available with HubSpot as well. Again, those are not enough. Salesforce is going to have some more relationships in general, but even in our experience, even Salesforce is very limiting from the data model perspective. When you get into the real transactional use cases, and in some industries, the CRM use cases are going to be as thick as your ERP use cases. Again, you are still touching on just the customer-centric, use cases. Even then, those objects become very thick. The kind of processes they are going to need becomes very thick as well. So it's very tricky even with Salesforce, but Salesforce is the only platform, and maybe Microsoft, that has been able to accomplish, all of those complex use cases. But then you also have some of the legacy ones, for example, Oracle, SAP, they have CRM platforms as well. They are just not as well adopted. So here, again, we have the asterisk on the data and integrity aspect, just because we don't know enough at this point of time. That's why we are not commenting.
It's brand new.
It's hard. It's hard to comment. We'll find out, I guess, one of these days.
Well, it better have data integrity, but who knows, right?
But I think what we need to worry about is the layers related to that, data integrity. Sometimes even for users, it's very hard to know what they are missing out, especially 90% of the users that they are going to have are fairly newer startups. So they just don't know what they don't know, I guess. So that's where, again, we need more data. So let's spend some time, maybe come back after 4 years and we'll review again.
Yeah.
But right now we just don't have enough data. Okay, so overall ideal fit right now is probably going to be for startups. That's where they are proven, early stage companies. If they are looking for a flexible CRM, then this could be a great fit. Now the second best comparison is going to be Folk, which is very similar, but it's going to have its own set of problems, right? So Folk is going to be easier to set up and use. You have scenarios such as ability to add context directly from LinkedIn. I don't know if Attio has that functionality or not, but they should be able to do it. That should be very easy for them to be able to accomplish. They are able to do enrichment from social media as well. Again, very similar use cases as what Attio is able to do. And then you are going to have fluid records. For example, let's say if you want to capture partners. So sometimes, Andy, companies do need to capture, for example, partners in the CRM. You might argue that why we need to capture there, and then you are probably going to have overlap with the vendors in the ERP. If you also have ERP in your architecture, the partners or vendors are going to reside, let's say, in your CAD PLM, depending upon which industry we are talking about here. But partners do need to be captured sometimes. Inside CRM, their use case might be limited, depending upon how they are collaborating in the deal. Sometimes these partners are going to be front facing as well. They could be similar to customers. So there are layers to that, but they need to be captured, and that's where I guess capturing these becomes very difficult in HubSpot, Salesforce, etc. And that's where the fluidity is going to be. So Folk, Attio, they are probably going to be in very similar category as the fluid CRM systems. Again, their challenges are very similar as well, just like Attio, limited functionality. They are slightly more developed, I would say, advanced. The number of logos they have are slightly more. Attio is newer than Folk, so obviously they are not going to have as many logos.
How long has Folk been out for?
We don't have the clear age right now. I don't think we have reviewed Folk so far.
Okay.
So I would not be able to comment on that. But yeah, Folk is relatively newer as well. Yeah. but again, it's not as proven as the other leading ones, Pipedrive, HubSpot. Obviously, they have substantial market share. Mobile capabilities are going to be limited with folk. In general, the reporting is going to be limited with folk as well. And again, the target market is very similar. For them too, it's going to be early stage companies, etc. Now, the next best comparison is probably going to be HubSpot. Most companies are probably going to be looking at that as well. So one of the advantages of HubSpot in comparison to your Attio and Folk is that HubSpot does allow custom object compared to some of the smaller CRM systems that you are going to look for. The custom object also have custom coded action, but they all have substantial limitations baked into that. So please don't assume that you can build any applications that you like. That's not how these CRM systems work. You still need to assess their capabilities. For the most part, the custom coded actions are going to have limitations such as how much data they are able to exchange, how much bandwidth they are able to support. And sometimes that is very hard to translate to the business users, how that applies to the business context. But these are real technical limitations, and you will run into that once you start implementing the CRM. So that's where HubSpot is highly constraining, highly limiting, even though they are going to claim that they are super customizable. Everybody claims that, but it's not the case.
What does APIs more capable than UI mean?
So the way HubSpot works, and this is different with a lot of SaaS platforms. So generally, the whole idea of API ND is going to be that is sort of the machine interface. Okay, it is basically exposing the same capability that you are going to have, from the UI perspective for the business users, for the users. So generally, let's say if you look at 90% of the ERPs, okay, their API is going to be behind. Okay, right. API is sort of the afterthought. First they are going to design UI. So let's say if you have 2,000 different requirements or use cases that are exposed through UI, API sometimes may expose 100, sometimes they might expose maybe 1,000, depending upon the ecosystem, depending upon how they are designed. Sometimes they are probably going to run parallel, for the newer platform, and that's where cloud native development might be slightly different. So if you look at any of the newer platform, they are going to expose first on API, and then they are going to, expose that through UI. So here with HubSpot, their capabilities are more exposed through API than through their UI. API is the main channel for them, and that's why they are able to support a lot more complex integrations. So sometimes what companies do is they sort of bypass the UI, create a custom app, fire the API, save the data, and that is going to be available through UI. So a lot of HubSpot use cases are implemented using that, but that is sort of the hack. It's not the native capabilities that is supported by HubSpot. So HubSpot ecosystem in general is very creative in that aspect. The only reason why they are able to do that is because their APIs are far more capable than UI. Andy, I don't know if that helps.
It does. Thank you very much.
Of course. HubSpot, another advantage with HubSpot is going to be that they have native CMS as well. So 90% of the CRM systems, they are probably not going to have native CMS. And CMS is going to be your content management systems. If it is going to be content-driven website, probably it's going to be hosted on WordPress. But then you have some of the advanced CMS systems out there as well. HubSpot has its own native CMS. So there's going to be added benefit. For example, let's say if you're looking for any sort of use cases from the website integration perspective, when you have to capture the integration, take action again, you have to model all of these workflows from the customer journey perspective. It's much easier to do inside HubSpot. If you try to do the same thing inside your Salesforce, it becomes much harder. Just because they don't have.
Isn't the foundation of every CRM a CMS system?
No.
No, eh?
No. CMS was a completely different system, completely different category. Back in the day, CMS was never bundled as part of sort of CRM, to be completely honest. But then some systems have started doing that. HubSpot is one of them, because for them, the whole traceability from the website was one of the most important aspects. And that's why HubSpot is so hot. Because if you try to achieve the same thing using Salesforce, it's a nightmare. In most cases, if you care for your website traceable use cases, when you have to go crazy in those scenarios in terms of what you are doing with the user interaction, and one of the foundation assumption that the majority of the HubSpot implementation have is they are trying to model the whole sales process using these automated marketing automation workflows. That's the claim that HubSpot is making, and they are really strong there. So that's the beauty, and the only reason why they are able to do that is because of the native CMS. Again, once you get into the layers, there are limitations there as well. Their forms are substantially limited. So accomplishing those scenarios are going to be equally challenging even with HubSpot as well. But at least you have some advantage that it is hosted in the same CRM system, as opposed to different. So with HubSpot, I think one of the major problems that you are going to get is going to be the data model. It's just not there. It's not a real CRM. It was supposed to be more of the marketing automation system. You can do plain vanilla sales processes, but that's the max that you can do in HubSpot. If you are going to be off from that, that's where HubSpot really struggles, even though it is a very cool technology. But if you try to overstretch its limits, it struggles a lot. And we have seen a lot of failures ourselves with HubSpot. Yeah. And again, they will claim that they have parent-child relationship. No real parent-child relationship. Even with Attio, it's not there. At least based on what we could see, from their screens. But in the real world scenarios, you are probably going to require that. They are, not fit for ad hoc workflows. Again, prescriptive, great. Ad hoc, no. From the HubSpot perspective. This is going to be primarily for B2B, B2C scenarios. It's probably not good. Pipedrive, again, primarily for the B2B centric companies, I would say. It does have some B2C flavor, but B2B is their main bread and butter. They have CPQ plus the data-driven workflows plus the document-driven workflows. So a lot of things are unique inside Pipedrive compared to these other platforms. And then custom objects in workflows are not going to be as rich as HubSpot. Pipedrive is going to support some. In these smaller systems, you can't even find that. So it's going to support some, but again, it's not going to be as rich as HubSpot. And we are already not confident on HubSpot itself. So think about how limiting they are going to be with your Pipedrive. Again, very similar challenges with Pipedrive as well. That it's very rigid data model. These are very traditional CRM systems. So you are not going to get the benefits that you are looking at from Attio or folks of the world. So that's Pipedrive. Salesforce, again, this is the most advanced CRM systems that we have in the market, for those enterprise transaction use cases from the customer experience perspective, from the customer perspective. You might be able to do a lot more, but even Salesforce data model struggles, even though they have designed literally ERP systems on Salesforce. but you will need to find a lot of workarounds even with Salesforce. So that's the overarching picture, I guess, in comparison to Attio. So I'll keep moving here unless you guys have any other comments, questions there. So overall, I guess, going back to the historical stories. So here, this is their round in 2021. They had done seed for 7.7 million, and some comments here. So they are saying, quickly configure tools to their exact needs. Notion, Airtable, Webflow, Zapier started this way when they are trying to follow the same layer. We are bringing in to the largest business software category, which is CRM. With Attio, we are completely changing how people think of CRM with two fundamental shifts from the traditional paradigm. And they are saying Attio is built directly on top of Teams' existing data streams rather than requiring continuous manual inputs. So that is the enrichment aspect that I discussed. And then we have started this with email, calendar, and social media. They are getting all of this data automatically inside the CRM so that you don't have to do entry. Direct data integration means that teams have access to more high quality data that's always up to date. As proof of this power, most new teams start getting value from Attio within 2 minutes, which is shocking. Obviously, if you look at the total implementation time, it's going to be much easier just because they are able to do a lot of these things automatically. But again, what you really need to evaluate is the data integrity. That would be my biggest concern, but seems promising. The second shift is that every other CRM users work against rigid and opinionated features and data structures that try and dictate how teams should be working. That is real. And the reason for that is because databases work that way. They are rigid, especially if you're looking for data integrity. They have to be structured. So again, maybe object databases have figured this out. I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. In Attio, however, web flows Workflows are totally user defined and supported by the library of powerful templates and an extensive knowledge base. With ATO's flexibility, teams frequently build processes that are impossible to fit into traditional CRMs. I completely agree with the problem that there is a real problem there. So they are trying to solve a real problem. Now, whether that is going to be solved or not is going to be a question, but there is a problem. Building a new model for CRM, we combine the power and flexibility of an advanced CRM data model with the beautiful design and multi-layer collaboration capabilities of no software. Again, collaboration capabilities are going to be very similar to the newer, every single category that we have seen. They are built on collaboration, and these guys are trying to follow that as well. And the only reason why it is possible is because the whole no schema database. You cannot do that with the traditional category. So again, we need to figure out, okay, where that marriage is going to be, but time will tell, I guess. Right now, we just don't have enough insights into that. So here, Andy, comment?
No, sorry.
Okay. So they are saying early on, we designed Attio to ingest and sync with one of our most powerful data sets, our emails and calendars. As a result, you can set up your CRM in minutes instead of months. True. You can immediately see a list of all your relationships, whether tens of thousands and hundreds of hundreds or millions of contacts, and sort them through quickly in milliseconds. Again, generally in my mind, if you look at that kind of a speed, that means there is something missing from the structure perspective, because the only place where you can find that kind of speed is going to be in places where you don't have any sort of structure, from the database perspective. That's how you sort of gain speed, and that's why analytical databases are generally faster. They are designed for high availability because they compromise on consistency. But hopefully the object databases have figured this out. Again, don't ask me that. From there, we added novel features like automatic detailed profiles, communication intelligence. We have built a super flexible data architecture that can accommodate a wide array of go-to-market strategies and use cases, which is true. Build out data layer, one data layer called Particle. So they are calling it Particle, allows us to provide new and innovative features and capabilities in CRM. With Particle, users can already filter, sort, build workflows on millions of customer records in milliseconds. We plan on expanding our data layer to enable customers to create even more complex and unique processes tailored to their specific business model. Again, the claim is promising. I don't know how successful that is going to be. I'll keep going here. Short on time right now. So 2023, now they are appreciating Salesforce. The only CRM they have appreciated is Salesforce, and they are talking the right things about Salesforce, which is mind-blowing, wonderful. Okay, that's how you should start. You should appreciate your competitors. So good job there, ATU. Here they are saying your product as a CRM, it's a requirement to have company object, which is right. These objects are used to track a business entity. So they are trying to describe all of the relationship and objects the way they are going to work in Salesforce. Business entity and will often contain information such as the website, name, location of the business. Then people are the context. Okay, they are saying it's almost always the case that you want to also track your relationship with the individuals at the company. Generally, they are called context, not people, because people could be slightly misleading, I would say. That get into a little bit of HR category, but sure, you can call people if you like. This object can track contact information such as your email addresses, phone numbers, or social media handles alongside other useful data such as their roles, etc. Now, accounts is going to be another slightly more financial entity inside CRM. So here they are saying larger companies will have several different teams that you may work with independently. This often presents a hiccup to the carefully planned world of companies and people. So a fudge factor is introduced that is called an account. That's not true. Okay, account is a real hierarchy. You need that to be able to relate those data sets. Otherwise, it's going to be really loose data. Even within Salesforce, it's a nightmare if you are going to capture everything as a lead. So I don't agree with this statement right here, but sure, you might call them out on the accounts, but accounts is a real need. In fact, you need far more complex hierarchy when you get into the real business scenarios. This concept rarely maps to the way your team thinks about the concept. It represents as every business is a little different. Yes, they are different, and that's why you need the custom objects. You need the modeling, of the objects. So I agree with the problem. Array of examples ranging from hiring team to business unit. Hiring team. In this, you might be overstretching the CRM boundary. in my mind. You might be overstretching that because then you are getting into the whole HCM category. In every case, the term account would rarely be used, but the abstraction can still be made to work with some effort. Overarchingly, I'm agreeing, but there are some disagreement in this. Then they are talking about opportunities. So a couple of touch-ups here on the opportunity. They are saying a variety of operational data, such as your close probability, deal size, and team member, responsible for the process. They are saying this schema or data model. So they are talking about schema or data model allows CRMs to optimize their user experience and more easily provide their initial value, but it comes at the cost of extensibility, which is the real problem. You are right. They are not as extensible as what you are going to get with Attio. Now, some more comments here. I'll keep going here. So this is again the Salesforce story, I guess. So they are saying this data model often works quite well to start with, but fairly quickly you will always find yourself translating the way you think about your process into the setup your CRM of choice proposes. Eventually, a situation will arise where no matter how hard you try, you simply cannot fit what you want to achieve into the narrow world defined by these standard objects. Yes, you are right. This is the real problem with 90% of the CRMs. When you are going to implement it, if you don't know what your to-be state is going to be, you are sort of stuck there. And once you are stuck, and then it's only going to feel over bloated. So there's a real problem there. Perhaps you are building a marketplace that also wants to track listing, an online car dealership that wants to track vehicles, or an infrastructure as a service business that wants to track APIs, and there will be no way of modeling that, which is right. Okay, with these businesses, the whole GTM process, the whole customer-centric process gets very challenging, very thick, and that is very hard with tools such as your HubSpot, even with Salesforce. A common solution that most CRMs take is to introduce custom field. A custom field is a way, and again, custom fields are very lean. There's not much there, so I will probably not touch on that. But then they are talking about the custom objects here, so I'll probably touch on that a little bit. This ultimately brings us to one of the foundational reasons as to why Salesforce has become so ubiquitous. All companies need to tweak their sales process to match the way they sell. It's the product market fit equivalent for a sales team. So they are appreciating that Salesforce is really powerful because they allow not only custom fields, but the custom objects. And with custom objects, you have the real world hierarchies that you are able to model. That is not possible even with HubSpot. So here they are saying this magical concept allows you to configure the objects they need alongside the predefined concepts identified above. A few CRMs that attempt to support the custom object for most Salesforce and HubSpot, but only Salesforce truly delivers on the underlying promise of a flexible data model. That is right. But then they are calling them out that the unique brilliance of Salesforce is that using a custom object, a team can accurately represent their unique business process within the platform. Additionally, third-party developers from Salesforce, enormous ecosystem can dynamically create these objects for you, allowing you to have first-party representations from tools like Stripe, Intercom, and DocuSign. So yes, that is all possible. So I think you might be getting a sense of what is going on here. So I think they are talking about Salesforce, but they are also talking about the limitation of how limited Salesforce can get overall from the fluidity perspective. They are talking about a lot of different problems, with Salesforce, which for the most part, it's true in terms of what they have touched. Overall from the problem perspective, that Salesforce has a real problem, especially when you are going to talk about the real ad hoc use cases. That's where Salesforce really struggles, and that's what these guys are trying to solve. So I'll keep going here. Now, some of these are the stories related to their integration. So they are doing Attio plus June, and I believe June is the CDP platform. This is the story from 2023. Here they are saying Attio is different. From the very beginning, we have built our product to natively support PLG motions, and this PLG motions is going to be where you are getting this CDP data inside your CRM. Again, that's very hard in most of these CRMs because you don't have those data layers as part of the data model. That's why we are thrilled to announce our integration with June, which will bring your product data into Attio with just a few clicks, no reverse ETL or data warehouse required. That's what they are claiming. But again, I mean, depending upon your architecture, you might need that. For the most part, there's a real need of bringing this data. But again, you still need to verify your master data governance processes, how that is going to be mapped, especially if you're going to have other systems in your architecture, such as your ERP. Then you are talking about upsell. Power users use Attio's view feature to identify the strongest PQL based on the most important product metrics. They are talking about product churn, so I'm not going to touch on that. And they are talking about that, okay, this is built for PLG. Again, the whole PLG aspect is going to be that you bring a lot of CDP data inside your CRM. Again, don't ask me, okay, what is the right approach? I guess, if you look at Klaviyo or I guess Braze, those two have combined the whole CDP process. Microsoft is combining CDP as part of their package as well. So interesting approach. These guys are trying to bring external data inside the CRM. So I don't know which is the better approach, but very interesting. Here, these are different objects that they are able to model as part of their process. So at least based on the claims, they are able to. So workspace is going to be included as part of the standard object. Company people are going to be standard object. But then you are able to create something like onboarding. You are able to create deal. You are able to create partnership. Some people are going to argue that you can probably do that inside HubSpot and Salesforce as well. But again, things are different. Okay, here you have the real fluidity. These objects don't need to be there when you are talking about those auto enrichment use cases. So this is slightly more powerful, I would say. And the relationships are different as well. Okay, so I'll keep moving here. Now, the way they have demonstrated this, they are showing you the real ER diagram from the data model perspective. But again, I don't think this is the real ER, the way their capabilities are modeled, because the only relationship that they are able to support is the association. Association relationship is there with HubSpot as well, but then HubSpot struggles when you are going to get into the real complex use cases and relationships. HubSpot struggles a lot just with that, and these guys have that as well. I think I have a slide for that. But here they are able to model a lot. They are able to model buyer, seller. They are able to model, some of the transactions. Deal is common, so that's not very unique. I don't have anything else that I need to touch on, but yeah, they have a lot more fluidity overall. Now, here they are talking about, this is the many-to-many relationship between your deal and person. You have one-to-many relationship between your company and deal. But here, if you look at the way they are sort of mapping the deals with the object that they are linking to, for example, let's say they need to map your deal to your people, you have 4 different relationships that they are able to manage, which is going to be your many-to-one, one-to-many. But again, these relationships and the labels exist in HubSpot as well. So that's where I'm sort of lost, that you don't have more overall from your data relationship perspective, but then you are claiming that you are fluid. So I don't know, where the gap is. So there's something missing here that I'm not able to figure out, what's going on overall. But you have these relationships inside HubSpot as well. The only advantage I see is that you can delete a lot of these objects, including these standard ones, and then you can override that. So I think that's really useful, for a lot of different custom use cases. And the whole integration piece, I don't think you will be able to do this inside HubSpot, because you will not be able to create the same hierarchy that are going to exist inside your data warehouse. But again, depending upon how hierarchical this data is going to be a question. Now, when you look at their screens, so they are capturing a lot of different categories. For example, B2B, B2C, e-commerce, enterprise, and that's where I'm kind of lost. Because if you look at these categories, they are going to be some sort of type, and that type is sort of the multidimensional relationship. And generally, inside CRMs, the way these relationships are captured is that you are going to have the relationship or the hierarchical relationship between custom object. It's almost like a real parent-child relationship where you have some sort of inheritance in play, the way your technology models are going to work. But that is something is not visible from their screens. It seems like they are capturing these as almost like tags or the categories. So that's where I'm sort of lost, that they don't have the real hierarchical relationships that you need for the real world modeling, if you're claiming that you can build any hierarchy from the ER modeling perspective. So it's very interesting. So I think that's pretty much what we can cover in today's session. So I'm probably going to take some comments. Any comments?
Yeah, well, very, very interesting. I mean, if it really can do everything that they're claiming, and they have the data integrity in the background as well. I think this product looks like a real winner.
And by the way, Andy, for your information, they are working on the ERP category as well with the similar model, literally. So you don't need any sort of chart of account setup. You don't need ERP implementation. You can create chart of accounts on the fly. There is a solution for that as well. So keep an eye on that. Yeah.
Really?
It's coming.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
With specific ERPs or their own ERP?
The whole ERP market is going to be disrupted. Again, if they have the real transactional integrity, that means this is a real deal. And there's going to be a real.
That's the biggest objection about any kind of software system, right?
Yeah.
Effort.
So they are saying that can confirm Attio has data integrity. We use Spanner as a database, not as we use Spanner as a database, not an object DB. Interesting. Okay. So I mean, sure. But again, what level of data integrity is?
Hey, proof is in the pudding, right? Is wait,
exactly.
Wait till you see how it all rubber hits the road is when you know the truth, right?
Yeah, and we can look at Spanner, how you are able to do that. So again, we need technical details to be able to confirm whether you are going to have the real transactional integrity that is generally available with most CRM systems, and that is going to be the core, and that's why Salesforce is so powerful. More comments, more follow-ups, Andy? Thank you so much for the comment, though.
Oh, thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay, Shrestha, do you have anything?
I just have a question, like with these newer systems coming into the market with more flexible data model, do you think they really give a tough competition to the giant ones like Salesforce or HubSpot, or within the few years, like it will remain, like the giants will remain the giants itself?
I mean, if their claims are right, then the whole CRM market is going to be disrupted. And the whole ERP market is going to be disrupted. So I don't know if we are going to have a job, but we'll find out.
The problem with the giants, Shrestha, is that they're not flexible. They can't move as quickly because they've already got an established customer base and they can't disrupt their customer base. Okay. So coming up with a new technology, a new product, a new system like this can take over the entire market if they do it right.
More comments, guys? Right, perfect. So that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys stay tuned for the next line of episodes. We are going to bring many different newer technologies, newer platforms and solutions and vendors. So thank you once again for tuning in today.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.